The Independent Task Force on the Response to Sexual Abuse within the Diocese of Springfield released its final report this past Wednesday. The task force was convened in early 2020 by then Bishop Mitchell Rosansky to improve how allegations of sexual abuse are investigated and handled. After much fact-finding and discussion, the group came up with a report and a strategic plan. CAROLEE McGrath has more.
After working together for nearly 2 years, the Independent Task Force on the Response to Sexual Abuse within the Diocese of Springfield released a report and strategic plan to address the goal of improving how the diocese responds to allegations of abuse and its efforts to make sure children are safe. Task Force co-chair Irene Woods is the founding executive director of the Children's Advocacy Center of Franklin County in North Quabbin. She's also a licensed independent clinical social worker.
Bishop Byrne has enthusiastically accepted our report and recommendations. We are grateful to him for the trust he has placed in us and for his conviction in making the necessary changes.
In preparation for drafting the final report, the task force received and summarized the input gained from the focus groups of survivors conducted by Stop It Now, an internationally recognized sexual abuse prevention organization. They also analyzed the 492 surveys completed by members of the community, and they collated the information collected from the interviews with diocesan clergy. Co-chair Orlando Azaza is the former program officer at the Community Foundation of Western Massachusetts. He is also a social worker.
Critical to the task force's comprehensive process was to hear the voice of victims or survivors, the clergy, and the community. Notably, many stakeholders had never been invited to share their experience and perspectives with the diocese, while others had been marginalized and disenfranchised for decades. Thus, inviting stakeholders to share their voice and give input into the strategic plan in a safe, structured, and valid way was a top priority for us.
And a top priority for Bishop William Byrne, who thanked the task force for their work and said this is a new day for the diocese.
It is critically important that this report and accompanying strategic plan was not a top-down initiative, but rather it was a grassroots effort, one that would not have been possible without the invaluable input the task force received from the various stakeholder groups. I want to especially thank, with my personal thanks, to the courageous clergy abuse survivor community for the substantively critical input.
Since before he was installed, Bishop Byrne has recognized the extraordinary pain and courage of survivors and all those affected by the clergy sexual abuse scandal.
It is my sincere hope that this will offer us a blueprint to once and for all set a course for real change in how we handle future allegations. So it is with a most grateful heart that I accept this report and strategic plan.
There are 6 strategic initiatives in the 20-page report. The diocese will acknowledge the trauma of sexual abuse on members of the community and ensure the allocation of resources needed to promote healing of survivors and the faith community. The diocese will respond to all allegations of sexual abuse in the church community in a timely, compassionate way. The diocese will ensure a transparent system of protocols and procedures that guarantee respect and due process for all. The diocese will ensure that the local church leadership is held responsible and accountable for failing to protect children and other vulnerable persons. In addition, they will hold those who have been credibly accused of sexual abuse responsible and accountable. And the diocese will establish programs designed to prevent sexual abuse of anyone in the faith community. Each of the 6 initiatives in the strategic plan have specific recommendations. For example, under number 6, which deals with prevention, the task force is recommending the relaunching of the Virtues training program or protecting God's children. Under number 3, which deals with a transparent system of protocols and procedures, the task force is calling for the appointment of an advisory board to ensure that this plan is fully implemented. The task force will stay on until the new oversight committee has been convened. A few specific recommendations made in their report have already been implemented. The joint memorandum of understanding between the diocese and the 3 district attorneys' offices in Western Massachusetts has been completed. The task force recommendation to update the mandated reporter policy was implemented in May. And the Diocesan Review Board, which hears cases of sexual abuse and makes a recommendation to the bishop about the credibility of a claim, has also been reconfigured with new bylaws written by the task force. The task force was in place before the release of the Judge Vilas report, which found sexual abuse allegations against deceased Bishop Christopher Weldon to be credible.
One central theme in his report was the relative absence of checks and balances in the process of investigation of allegations. And the report itself and the creation of the advisory board make sure that checks and balances are established.
And while the bishop says the report is just the beginning of rebuilding trust, he says he's hoping to reach out to those who have left the church.
I asked them to step back so that they can be a living part of a healing church. And that's my invitation to them. We seek to be the healing hands of Christ in the world, and I need them to help me do that.
The task force is recommending that the strategic plan be fully implemented by 2024. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm CAROLEE McGrath.